Week 13 of the NFL wrapped up. Let's take a look at your 16 games from the week and break them all down, starting with the Thanksgiving Day trio, and that would start in the 1 o'clock slate with the Seahawks losing by 20 to the Lions, who finally get their first win on Thanksgiving in sim history. Big win for Detroit as Seattle. It was a rough day. Geno Smith, 4 interceptions, all coming in the first half. Also threw for 229 and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker had a rushing touchdown, but it was Jared Goff, 273, 3 touchdowns, and 100 of those passing yards went to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a touchdown on the day, but 11-1 for the Lions. The 4:30 game, the Cowboys knock off the Cardinals by 10, 34-24. A big win for Dallas. They hold the lead in the NFC East. Kyler Murray had 2 interceptions, nearly 330 yards, the most he's had all year. Big game for Trey McBride and Rondale Moore. For Dak Prescott, though, 246, 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had 108 and a touchdown on 4 catches. Tony Pollard had a pair of touchdowns on 20 rush for 103 yards. And then the night game at 8:15, the Bengals won 33-21 over the Titans. Will Levis was back for this game, and he played okay. Was not very good in the second half, though. Levis threw for 258 most in his career. 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions really hurt the Titans. Derrick Henry, worst game of his career, just 45 yards and a touchdown. Joe Burrow threw for nearly 350 yet again. 3 touchdowns and a pick. Jamar Chase, 106 receiving yards. The NFL's first ever Black Friday game was a thriller. 31-24, Ravens beat the Vikings. Minnesota was down 31-10 with 5 minutes to go. Came back, recovered the onside kick, the second recovered onside kick in 2 days. 4th and goal, missed it, unfortunately, lost the game. But Cousins, 330 and 3 touchdowns, 2 of those to TJ Hawkinson. Lamar Jackson, 186 and 2 touchdowns, had a long rushing touchdown of 31 yards. The Panthers get 2 straight wins over division rivals. They beat the Falcons 24-14 and get to 2-10 on the season. Bryce Young, 207, a touchdown and an interception. Sanders and Hubbard each had rushing touchdowns for the Panthers. Desmond Ridder talks of him being benched after this game. 220, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Bijan Robinson had a touchdown, so did Drake London, as the Falcons fall to 4-9 going into their bye week. The Packers beat the Patriots 20-12. This game was way more out of reach than the score looks to be. The Packers were up 20-3 in the third quarter. Jordan Love, 163, 1 touchdown. It was a day of mostly running, as Aaron Jones had 92 rushing yards for a touchdown. Romeo Doubs, 38 receiving yards. Mac Jones threw for 150, a touchdown and an interception. Ramondre Stevenson had the receiving touchdown, a decent day for Devontae Parker. But the Packers are now 7-5. The Jaguars win in Duval 31-17, a close game at first, but the Jaguars blew it away in the fourth quarter. In Chicago, they don't look like too bad of a team. Justin Fields, 183 and a touchdown. Khalil Herbert had a rushing touchdown as well. Trevor Lawrence, though, 244, 3 touchdowns, consistently averaging the most yards per game out of the quarterbacks at about 235. Calvin Ridley has been a big factor in the second half of the season for Jacksonville, who's now 7-5 and has total control of the division. So much rain in MetLife to where it's hard to see. The Eagles win 9-6 over the Giants, who put up a heck of a fight. They had 3 takeaways on defense. The Eagles just won. Jalen Hurts, 156 and an interception. Saquon Barkley had 89 rushing yards. Daniel Jones, 141. They had no touchdowns in this game, all chip shot field goals, as the longest field goal was a 35-yarder for the Eagles to take the lead. In overtime, the Commanders win on a game-winning field goal and knock off the Texans, a huge upset for Washington, and thanks to that puts Jacksonville in sole possession of the South. Sam Howell, 290 and 3 touchdowns, had an interception. C.J. Stroud had 265, and it was just late game mistakes and penalties for the Texans that cost them, the Commanders, to come back, tie it, and then force overtime. Huge game for Jahan Dotson, as the Commanders are now 3-9. The Dolphins beat the Saints 31-20. After they were down 31-0 last year, came back and won. They dominate the Saints this year. Tua had 242 touchdowns. Andrew Van Ginkel had a 40-yard interception return for a touchdown. Good day for Raheem Mostert. Derek Carr had 2 touchdowns, of course, that interception. Kamara had one of those receiving touchdowns. Chris Olave had the other one. Dolphins are now 8-4 and can lock up a playoff spot in the coming weeks. Big game in Tampa Bay, 34-20. The Rams knock off the Buccaneers in a good day for Los Angeles to improve them to 7-5. Stafford 248, 3 touchdowns. They're on a roll, even without Puka Nacua. Kupp had 83 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Higbee played well as well. Baker Mayfield 246 and a pair of touchdowns. One of those to Chris Godwin, who had 74 and a touchdown. Only 3 catches for Mike Evans on the day, as the Bucs have lost a couple in a row. Another big upset in Vegas, 23-14. The Raiders knock off the Browns, who are on a bit of a winning streak. That comes to an end. Deshaun Watson, 183 and 2 interceptions against a bad Raiders defense. Aiden O'Connell, though, 201, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Josh Jacobs had a touchdown. It was the Raiders defense that really helped them get the win. Finally, a decent day for Devontae Adams, who's had such a slow season. But the Raiders are now 4-8. America's Game of the Week, the Chiefs knock off the Steelers in a big win, 24-13 in Arrowhead, a game where Pittsburgh really struggled to find any offensive momentum. Kenny Pickett, 219, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. George Pickens with 94 receiving yards, but Mahomes, 228, 3 TDs. Great day for him. Travis Kelce had a touchdown, and Kansas City's 8-4. Pittsburgh slips to 7-6 and is still the bubble team in the playoffs at the moment. The Broncos hold off a late comeback from Easton Stick to win 27-20 and beat the Chargers in SoFi. Huge win for Denver, who's now 6-6 after the loss against Cleveland. Russell Wilson, 259, 2 touchdowns. Easton Stick, 223 and a touchdown. He threw his longest career touchdown as well, a 60-yarder to Jalen Guyton. But the Chargers are 2-10 and currently with the Panthers have the number 1 draft pick. So a very interesting decision there by the Chargers on what they're going to do if that stands. We had our first snow game of the NFL season. It was in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football, 27-13. Buffalo takes down Sam Darnold, who had 2 interceptions on the night. McCaffrey had the only touchdown. But Josh Allen, 245, and the hat trick through the air. Dalton Kincaid, and Gabe Davis had those touchdowns. Not the best night for James Cook, as the 49ers came in there and planned to stop the run, only for Josh Allen to throw on them. And then wrapping up the week on Monday Night Football, the Colts win 20-13 and put themselves back in the picture for not just a playoff spot, but for the AFC South at 6-6. Anthony Richardson, 195, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown. Jonathan Taylor had over 100 yards rushing. Good night for Michael Pittman. Zach Wilson, 193 and a touchdown. The Jets had 2 takeaways on defense and still lost this game by 7. They fall to 5-7. No teams on bye this week, so here are the standings. Just a reminder, in the description below is the Super Bowl VIII sweepstakes document. Make sure to fill that out to be a part of the Super Bowl VIII experience. But it's Buffalo on top with Kansas City, Baltimore, and Jacksonville, the division leaders, with the Dolphins, Bengals, and Steelers all in the playoffs. But 8th through 14th still has a legitimate chance in the AFC to make a playoffs, and it's unbelievable how tight that race is. In the NFC, a tad bit different. Lions 11-1, best team in the league by far. Dallas at 10-2 with Philly there in the 5 seat. 49ers, Buccaneers division leaders. Seattle and the Packers are the final 2 seat. But the Rams are also in the hunt with the Vikings. It's a little bit harder for teams like the Saints and Giants to fight back, but they still have time, 3 games back. But if they lose next week and those 3 teams win, then they're eliminated from playoff contention. This is ASC, signing off.